Got it. Cool. We are live. Just going to check some comments and things like that. Just make sure people are able to join me. So just bear with me for a couple of minutes. Link, check this in here. Brilliant. And that's done. That's good. So that should be recording. That should be live. I'm going to jump between Zoom and YouTube pretty regularly, I think, just to pick up any comments or questions or anything that people might have. If you do have comments or questions, just pop them into the chat field. It's absolutely fine, and I'll try and get to them. So this is creative use of Aperture. Excuse me if I'm kind of looking down. As I said, I'm looking at my phone as well, just making sure everyone can join as planned. But yeah, this is creative use of Aperture. So this is all about your photography. This is a little challenge I put together once a month, and it differs. So each month there is a challenge. This one is on Aperture. Next month, so for March, the challenge will be creative use of shutter speed. In April, it'll go back to Aperture. May, shutter speed. So change it, chops and changes each month, just to take in the first kind of basic stages of photography and just getting you thinking a little bit more about your settings and how you can use them to creative effect. So we're going to have a look at a couple of the photos that were sent through. Just got a question here. So no, it's just on YouTube. Okay. Okay. All right. So I'm going to just jump across to YouTube, just make sure everything's good. Excellent. That's all good. Any questions? Can go here. Cool. Okay. Excellent. Right, I am going to start sharing my screen in just a second. Make sure my microphone is on. Brilliant. So, couple of things then. I'm going to grab this link. This is a link. I'm going to pop this into the YouTube chat as well. This link is for basically my calendar. So you can arrange a free session, so a free one-to-one coaching session on anything to do with your photography, and you can arrange that with me using that link that I've just given you in the YouTube comments field. I'm also going to pop it into the meetup field. So use this link for a free 1-to-1 session. So we're just going to pop that into the comments in meetup as well. But yeah, you just follow that link through. I'll show you what it looks like. If I can just drop that into here. So you can go onto here and arrange either a quick 15-minute discussion or a more in-depth up to 1 hour session. And you just click through and choose your own time zone and all that sort of good stuff. and then follow it through, and you'll be able to book a free one-to-one session. So yeah, follow that through, and hopefully I'll be able to talk to you a bit more about your photography. Cool. Just making sure, just giving people a couple more minutes to join. Excellent. I think everyone's okay now. Brilliant. This will be available as a recording as well after we've finished, so it's all good. So let's jump into the photos that we had sent through for this particular challenge. We can get rid of this one. This was just an example that I put in. But we did get through photos through. So firstly, a couple of photos here from Ella. Ella, thanks very much for taking part and for sending your images through. I appreciate your input a lot. Just bring up your metadata here as well, just so I can have a look. So you've used an aperture of f1.5 on this big grand landscape. Yeah, look, all of your images that you sent through, I don't think they really highlight a creative use of aperture so much. They're good images, and they would, you know, they obviously have some quite dramatic landscape and stuff in them, but they don't really highlight a creative use of aperture. Just going to bring out the metadata of each of them because I'm interested to see how you've shot them. So again, a wide open aperture of f1.5. Are you using a smartphone? Is that what it is? Maybe you're taking these on your phone and that's why your aperture is so open. Generally speaking, with landscapes, you're going to use a smaller aperture so that you can get a much bigger depth of field. So that's the focus of the amount of your image that is in focus from in front and behind your focus point. And you can learn more about that in either some coaching or in my Aperture class, which is part of my Elevate Your Photography series. But yeah, look, they're good images, and I like what you've done, but they don't really hit the brief. And the brief is to use your aperture to create an effect. Tommy sent through a number of images as well, and these are a little bit more appropriate for the brief. So you can see that the background here has been blurred out really nicely, and the focus point is on the bird, and he's captured this really well. If anything, I think there's maybe a little bit too much distraction going on in the background. Although it's nicely blurred out, you can still make out that there's a wall and a railing and that sort of thing there. And it might serve the image better to get rid of that if you can. So let's have a look at the settings. Aperture of f8, yeah, okay. ISO 800, wow, okay, it's getting up there. And taking in shutter priority, right? So that's what it is. So so the image was shot using shutter priority. So it's you've dialed in a shutter speed of 1/1600th of a second, which is absolutely fine because you've got a relatively fast moving subject, could move at any point. You want to make sure that you get the subject in focus and sharp, and so you need a quick shutter speed, which is fine. But an aperture of f8 has given you some nice blur. If you were able to open that aperture up a little bit more to something like 5.6 or f4, you might even blur this background out a little bit more, to the point where it's indistinguishable. You can't really make out what it is, but your subject gets a little bit sharper every time you do that, and that would be better, I think, for you with this particular image. Or you can do some funky stuff in editing, and we might have a look at these in Lightroom in a second, just to see what we could do with them to maybe just elevate them, make them pop a little bit more, and maybe make them a bit more aesthetically pleasing. But that's a really good attempt at capturing, really pretty bird, some nice foreground elements to it as well. I just find the background a little too distracting. This one I really like. Again, I think you could do even more with this in editing, just to really make this plant pop. But this is more akin to the brief. So you're getting closer now to creative use of Aperture. Let's have a look at the settings again. So this time shot manually, well done, that's excellent. And an aperture of 5.6 and 1/500th of a second, fantastic. Yeah, so really taking more creative control of your camera to get the result that you want. I think you could, make this pop a little bit more by darkening down the background, maybe. Depends how much you're into editing. You know, if this is straight out of camera and you haven't done much editing, then I get it. You know, if you don't want to sit there and do a lot of editing, that's absolutely fine. But there are things that you can do to just maybe make it pop a little bit more. But it's a really good attempt. It's not super sharp, I don't think, but it's pretty good. So yeah, it's good. Just be mindful. The thing with Aperture when you are shooting at wide open apertures is your focus has to be really quite spot on, because otherwise you will end up, blurring out things, even just these petals. If your focus point is this part of the plant, the flower here, if you use too wide an aperture, you'll end up blurring this out, and that can obviously look really good, but it might be that you want an aperture exactly as you have done, f5.6, which keeps the whole of the plant in focus and blurs the background. That's the point for people looking at this and wondering, how was it done? And this one, I think this one is my favorite out of the ones that you sent through, to be honest, Tommy. I really like it. Again, in manual, well done. Aperture f10, so quite a small aperture really for the kind of image that you're taking. If you opened that up a little bit more, you'd get a faster shutter speed again, and you'd be able to pop that ISO down, and that will give you a much sharper image. So wherever you can, get that ISO down as low as you possibly can. And you can use your shutter speed and aperture in combination with each other to allow you to do that. But yeah, I really like this. I really love the way that you've got some of the petals here that have fallen away as you've taken the shot. I think it's really nicely done. Again, I think in editing, you could make it even better. Maybe with some selective edits, darkening down the background, really making these pop, and maybe even bringing out these petals a little bit more so that they're more obvious in the frame, because it's a lovely element to have them falling away. But yeah, have such an abundant flower in bloom up in the top portion. So yeah, really, really nicely done. I think of all the images that were sent through, I think this one's probably my favorite. But that is all that we've had. I'm just looking at the meetup group just to make sure that there aren't any that have been sent through from there. We do have one from Ankit, I think, which I think we've seen before. I'm not sure, but I am just gonna try and send it over to my iPad if I can. A little bit of an issue with the connection, so let's try grabbing it straight from Meetup on the web page. Let's see if we can get this one. Go. Okay. Yeah, I think we've spoken about this one before, Ankit. So I don't know if you sent this one through for the challenge this week or not. But yeah, same things as last time. This all is distracting. This is blurred over here. There's a few things that you could do to it. We've spoken about it. I won't waste time talking about it now. We've spoken about it before. That's all good. So let's have a look at a couple of these. We do have some time, so let me jump into Lightroom here. Just going to go to YouTube, see if there's any questions or anything. focal Ankit. What focal length lens would you recommend for nice portraiture photos, and one that would work with flowers and other subjects? What system you should? Something like a 50 mil, somewhere around a 50 mil would probably work well. It depends how close you can get to your subject. Because if you're going to be far away and you're needing to get, you're needing to fill your frame with your subject and you're far away, then you're going to need some zoom capability on there as well. But a 50 mil, generally speaking, works quite well for portraits. What you need to be careful with is that you don't have anything that's too wide. So, a 12, a 14, a 20, something like that will be too wide. And what that'll do is it'll distort the image and it will give it, a weird like fisheye effect, which just won't work well. So yeah, something like a 50 millimeter lens, maybe a 70 millimeter lens would be good. And that should work perfectly well for flowers and things as well. It's a pretty decent all-rounder. F1.8 question. I'm afraid I don't know what that means. What that question is. F1.8 is a wide open aperture setting, and that will let a lot of light into the lens, and it will blur out the background. So yeah, maybe elaborate on that one if you can, Ankit. So I'm not entirely sure what you're asking there. But yeah, in terms of focal length for portraiture and maybe some close-up of flowers and things, I'd look at something like a 50 mil. That's a good kind of all-rounder, if you like. And if you want zoom, then something in that range, maybe a 40 to 70, something like that. But be careful that you don't go too wide, because yeah, you'll get that weird distortion. And don't go too long. So don't go to like a 200 mil, because if you go 200 mil, you'll be too zoomed in, and you won't be able to get your subject in. I mean, 50 mil with 1.8. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, that's a great lens to use for portraiture and some getting towards, not macro, but close up images. So yeah, that's a good one. Cool. Okay. Let's just see. I'll just give you a couple of pointers in terms of editing if I can. Right, let's look at this one. So yeah, I spoke here about kind of making a bit more of this, and I think this one's would be quite an easy one. So with your editing, whether that's Lightroom or Snapseed or something, you can do what's called selective edits, and that's where you are editing some parts of the image and not others. So if you just went to the editing options now, anything you did would affect the whole image, right? That's making the overall exposure lighter and darker. And we don't want to do that, because the exposure for most part of the image is absolutely fine. But what we can do is play around with it a little bit to make it pop a bit more. So I'm just checking me up, because I think there was a comment just come through. No, doesn't look like it. But what we can do is, yeah, we can just make this pop a little bit more, and we do that by using selective edits. So in Lightroom, what we would do is use these masks, and the first thing I'm going to do is kind of darken down pretty much all the edges, and just try and bring a little bit more focus in on this flower, which is of course our main subject matter. So the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to grab a linear gradient, and I'm going to draw that in on the corner there. Then I'm going to go to light, and you see now when I use the exposure slider that I can just bring just that section either lighter or darker. And I'm going to create a few of those. This is one of my favorite ways to edit images, because your eye will always go to the brightest part of the scene. So what you really want to do is make the interesting part, the main subject matter of your image, make that light, basically. And sometimes you have to kind of do a bit of an edit and then go back in and change something else later, and I'll show you what I mean. So I'm just making these linear edits. There we go. And already that's just kind of popping a little bit more. So that is the before and that's the after. And it's very similar to applying a vignette. You know, you could go into your effects panel and apply a minus vignette, and that darkens all of the edges down, and you can take that as strong or as mild as you want. But very, very similar kind of process. Now, what I was going to do is take another selective edit, and this time a radial gradient. So this is where I can draw circles, it'd be like that. And then I was going to bring this up. I was going to brighten this, but you can see that by having darkened the edges already, it's already made this flower pop, you know. So don't feel like I really need to draw that in. I might do it a touch, but now that I've got that in there, I might just kind of play with the colouring a little bit. You want to be very subtle when you do this, but I might just play with the colouring a little bit just so I can really get it, you know, where I would want. You can see as I draw that around how that changes various, you know, the section that I've used. Done. So that's the before and that's the after, and that's just taking a little bit of care, a little bit of time with some selective edits. It just helps it kind of pop a bit more and is a little bit more dramatic, you know. I think that's really strong editing, can really help. And like I said, you could do a similar sort of thing to this one as well. I think the background, foreground, everything around the flower is quite bright. So, you know, you could just go straight for a vignette, and it just kind of, you know, darkens down all those corners and edges. But sometimes it's not quite enough, you know, so you still need to do excuse me, still need to do a little bit just to kind of get it exactly where you want. Now, this might not be your cup of tea at all. You might really prefer, so I'm just going to drink a water. You might prefer to not muck around with your photos at all, but I think it can just, you know, it just elevates them a little bit. Just really helps to tell a much stronger story. And it's a tool that we have at our disposal as digital photographers, so we might as well use it. Cool, okay. And I might just use a brush. You can also use a brush, and you can kind of paint areas with the brush like this. This is very rough. This might not work because it was such a rough. But I'm just going to kind of brighten that up a little bit, and you can see what a difference that makes. And, you know, you can dictate how big or how small you have that brush, and then you can just take areas this. And just, this is very rough, so this might look really weird when I'm finished, but you can see the red areas of what is going to be affected. And I said, you know, we can make some more of those petals because they're really cool. Seeing them fall, and of course you don't want to go too strong, that looks really weird, so we just want to kind of bring them out a little bit. But yeah, there you go. That just, you know, kind of takes it from having quite a bit of a distraction really around the background, because the background's quite strong, quite bright, And by doing this sort of thing, it just hones your attention into where you really want the viewer to be looking, which is, of course, this wonderful plant. Cool. Okay. I'm going to jump back into YouTube, see if there are any other questions that may have come through. Is this the Lightroom app for iPad? Thanks, Graham. We'll be buying a camera soon. Oh, great. Good on you, Ankit. Let me know if I can help at all, as always. Is this the Lightroom app for iPad? Yes, you're quite right. It is. I do all my editing, all my filming, all my one-to-one sessions, all my coaching, everything. I do it all via iPad. So yes, this is the Lightroom app for iPad, and I think it works very, very well. I'm very happy with it. I also edit using Affinity Photo and Snapseed. I don't use Snapseed so much, but it's fantastic for clients that want to get into editing, haven't done editing before. So, and it's, because Snapseed is free, so that's a really good one as well. Affinity Photo I use mainly for blending, so it's more advanced photographic techniques. I do a lot of panoramas, so I need to stitch photos together very often, or if I'm exposure blending or focus stacking or something, I'll use Affinity, because the Lightroom app on iPad doesn't do that kind of thing, so you need to couple it with another one. But yeah, they're the editing apps that I use. Sweet. Okay. Well, thanks for joining me. Half an hour or so, but there weren't too many photos sent through, but thank you to those people that did take part. Stay tuned in the meetup group for more events coming. It's been a little bit quiet February, but I've been very, very busy. And the next couple of months are busy as well. I'm heading to Spain for 10 days. I'm up in Sheffield for a few days. There's a few things going on, but I'm hoping to schedule a few more sessions for the remainder of February and March before heading off to Spain for an extended period at the end of April. So yeah, keep tuned. And hopefully we'll get together for an in-person shoot soon. I hope this has been helpful. And if you need any help or advice, or you've got questions or anything, don't forget to use that link in the chat there, and you can go ahead and schedule a free consultation with myself. I'll help you out with whatever you're wanting to work on with your photography or any other creative project that you might have. Please do utilize and take advantage of that offer. Great. All right. Thanks ever so much for your company. Thanks for tuning in. I hope it's been useful. I hope you've got something out of it. And I hope that next time with a few more photos to go through, I'll do a photo review soon as well. So that has no brief. You can just send through whatever photos you want, and I'll go through them and critique them in a very similar way that I've done this evening. This one gives you something particular to work on, but the photo review session, which I do have one scheduled for March, I think, the photo review session is completely open. So you send through any images you want. And I'll give you some feedback on them, and maybe give you some editing pointers or something like that as well. But yeah, reach out if I can help you at all. In the meantime, stay safe, stay well, and I'll see you on the next one. Okay, bye for now.